Barbara Bolick was only 20 or 30 feet away when her hiking companion turned to look at the view. About a minute later, he looked back, and Barbara was gone. Search teams would later comb the surrounding mountains, but no clear trace of her would explain where she went. And that is what makes this case so difficult to understand. 20 or 30 feet is close enough to call out to someone. A minute is barely enough time to walk very far. So where could Barbara possibly have gone? The Cold Files 8, The Disappearance of Barbara Bolick. To understand why that missing minute is so difficult to explain, we have to go back to July 18, 2007, near Bear Creek Overlook in the Bitterroot Mountains of western Montana. Barbara was 55 years old. She was an experienced hiker and knew the surrounding area well. That day, she was hiking with a friend who was visiting. She wore a pastel-colored shirt, tan shorts, and carried a black day pack. The area around Bear Creek is rugged. There are forested slopes, uneven ground, and old logging roads that spread through the mountains. It is the kind of terrain where someone can move out of sight quickly, even without anything unusual happening. But Barbara was not unfamiliar with it. That mattered, because getting lost is easier to imagine when someone does not know the area. Barbara did. It did not make her immune to an accident or a wrong turn, but it made the simplest explanation less satisfying. More importantly, nothing about the beginning of the hike appeared unusual. This was supposed to be an ordinary daytime trip with someone she knew. There was no public indication that Barbara had entered the mountains planning to disappear. Case summaries also note that she left behind important personal belongings, including identification, her passport, and her pets. Nothing about the start of the hike suggested that this would become a missing person case. The strange part began on the way back. According to the account later given by her companion, sometime between roughly 11:30 in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he stopped to look at the scenery. Barbara was nearby, about 20 to 30 feet away, roughly 6 to 9 meters. He looked away. About a minute passed. When he looked back, Barbara was no longer there. At first, there was an obvious explanation. She might have kept walking. She might have gone around a bend, stepped behind some trees, or moved just far enough ahead to be briefly out of sight. But Barbara did not reappear, and once it became clear that she was not simply farther down the trail, the situation changed from a moment of confusion into a search. The problem was that a small gap in visibility created a huge practical problem for searchers. If Barbara had continued on the trail, she could have been ahead. If she had stepped off it, even briefly, the search area immediately became much larger. A logging road, a slope, thick vegetation, or a change in direction could move someone away from the place where others expected to find them. That is why the short timeline is both the strongest detail in the story and one of the hardest to interpret. It sounds precise, but it does not tell investigators which direction Barbara moved, whether she left the trail at all, or whether anyone else crossed her path. That distance is what makes the story so difficult to picture. Barbara was not reported to be far down the trail. She was only a few steps away. Remember the distance, 20 to 30 feet. Whatever happened next had to begin inside an incredibly small window of time. Search and rescue crews, volunteers, and search dogs were brought into the area around Bear Creek Overlook. The terrain made their job difficult. Forest, steep ground, and old roads can create blind spots, and people can move in directions searchers do not expect. But searching difficult terrain is one thing. Finding no clear trace is another. The search did not produce a discovery that explained where Barbara had gone. Search dogs and ground teams did not provide the answer investigators needed, and no publicly reported finding established a clear route away from the area. But finding nothing does not prove Barbara was never somewhere in the wilderness. Search operations are not perfect, especially in large mountain areas. People can be missed. Terrain can hide someone from view. Weather, vegetation, distance, and time can all make a search more difficult. So the lack of a discovery did not eliminate an accident or getting lost. It simply made those explanations harder to confirm. And Barbara's experience added another layer. She knew the area and had experience hiking there. Again, that does not mean she could not have become disoriented, injured, or trapped. Knowing the terrain lowers one risk. It does not remove every risk. Still, familiarity matters. If Barbara had simply made a wrong turn, investigators still had to explain why such an extensive search failed to find a trace that resolved the case. Then there was the person who had last seen her. Naturally, investigators had to examine the account of Barbara's hiking companion. He was the last known person to report seeing her before she disappeared, and his description of those few moments became central to the timeline. But that fact has to be kept in perspective. Publicly available case summaries say he cooperated with investigators and was not considered a suspect. Being the last person to see someone does not automatically make a person responsible for what happened. Investigators would still need evidence connecting him to the disappearance. Nothing publicly available does that. And that brings the mystery back to the trail itself. Not long after, authorities were also interested in identifying two young men who had reportedly been seen in the area. They were believed to be in their early 20s and were accompanied by a dog described as a black mixed breed with floppy ears and white markings. A sketch of one of the men was released. There was also information that the pair may have been connected to an older, light-colored Chevrolet S10 with Missoula County license plates. The development sounded important. Two unidentified hikers, a dog, and possibly a vehicle in the same general area. But investigators were looking for information, not naming suspects. The two men were sought as potential witnesses. No public evidence connects either man to Barbara's disappearance. That distinction matters, because cases with very little evidence can quickly become filled with assumptions. An unidentified person can sound suspicious simply because no one knows who they are. But being unknown is not the same as being involved. The men may have seen Barbara. They may have noticed another person or a vehicle. They may have seen nothing useful at all. Investigators wanted the chance to find out. For investigators, that made identifying them worthwhile, even if they had no connection to the disappearance itself. In a wilderness case, a witness does not need to have seen the missing person directly to matter. They might remember where a vehicle was parked, whether someone was walking in the opposite direction, or whether a road that looked empty later had traffic on it. But without a confirmed statement from those men in the public record, that lead could not answer the central question. It remained another incomplete piece in a case already defined by missing information. And that is where this case becomes frustrating. Every explanation seems to solve one problem and create another. Start with an accident. Barbara was in genuine wilderness terrain. A fall, an injury, a sudden medical problem, or disorientation cannot be ruled out. Search teams can miss people, and difficult ground can conceal evidence for years. So an accident remains possible. That is also why the search results have to be read carefully. It is tempting to treat nothing found as evidence against an accident. But a search can only establish what was located, not everything that was present. At the same time, the scale of the effort still matters because it shows that the obvious areas were examined without producing a clear answer. In other words, the search neither solved the case nor erased the possibility of a wilderness accident. It left investigators in the uncomfortable middle ground, where a theory could remain reasonable without becoming provable. But the obvious problem is the search. Teams and dogs examined the area, yet no discovery explained what had happened. That does not make an accident impossible. It simply means there is no confirmed evidence showing that this is what happened. Then there is the possibility that Barbara left the trail. Her husband later said she was afraid of heights, and that he did not believe she would willingly approach a dangerous edge or simply wander away from the route. That is meaningful context from someone who knew her, but it is not proof. People can make unexpected decisions, and an emergency can change how someone behaves, so this possibility also remains open. What about a deliberate disappearance? Could Barbara have intentionally walked away from her life? That possibility has reportedly been discussed, along with other theories, but the details we do know make it hard to picture. Barbara left behind identification, her passport, other personal belongings, and her pets. Leaving those things behind does not make a planned disappearance impossible. But there is one obvious problem. How would she have left the area? There is no public evidence that she arranged a ride or planned a way out of the mountains. She had been hiking with another person nearby, and search efforts began after she disappeared. A voluntary disappearance may be possible in theory, but the logistics remain unexplained. Then there is the possibility that another person was involved. The two unidentified hikers naturally draw attention here, but attention is not evidence. Nothing publicly available shows that they harmed Barbara, helped her leave, or even spoke to her. They were potential witnesses. That is all the public record allows us to say with confidence. So the case reaches a strange position. An accident fits the environment, but no evidence has confirmed one. Getting lost fits the wilderness, but Barbara knew the area, and searches did not find her. A deliberate disappearance cannot be fully excluded, but her belongings and the logistics make it difficult to explain. Another person could have been involved, but there is no public evidence showing who that person might have been. Normally, as a missing person case continues, new information begins narrowing the possibilities. A witness remembers something, a personal item is discovered, a vehicle is identified, someone's account changes. A later search finds something that an earlier team missed. One piece of information starts pushing the case in a clearer direction. In Barbara's disappearance, that decisive piece never appeared publicly. Years after she vanished, reporting on the case still emphasized the same basic problem. Hikers, hunters, searchers, and search animals had not found the kind of trace that could explain what happened. The case remained open, and authorities continued asking for information. After years of searching, the investigation had not narrowed to one clear explanation. The same possibilities were still there: accident, getting lost, a deliberate disappearance, or another person's involvement, but none had enough evidence behind it to become the answer. And that brought the case back to the same place the story began: 20 to 30 feet, roughly 1 minute. Those numbers are powerful because they make Barbara's disappearance sound almost impossible to picture, but they also need to be treated carefully. They come from her companion's recollection, not a camera or stopwatch. That distinction does not make the case less mysterious. It simply changes how confidently we can describe that final moment. This is where the case becomes more than a story about someone vanishing in plain sight. The phrase is memorable, but it can make the event sound more certain than the evidence allows. What investigators actually had was a brief period in which Barbara was not being watched, followed by an unsuccessful effort to locate her. That is still unusual. It is still difficult to explain. But the difference matters, because responsible storytelling has to separate what happened from how dramatic the retelling has become over time. We should not imagine Barbara standing completely still at an exact point while someone turned away for a precisely measured number of seconds. What we have is an estimated distance and an estimated amount of time from the last person known to have seen her. The basic fact remains difficult to explain. She was reported nearby, and shortly afterward, she could no longer be seen. But an estimate is not the same thing as a recording. That matters when people try to build theories around every second. For Barbara's family, none of those distinctions produced the one thing they needed most: an answer. She did not come home. There was no confirmed accident they could point to, no established voluntary disappearance, and no publicly identified person shown to have taken her away. Her husband publicly expressed doubt that she would simply leave the trail or intentionally vanish. From his perspective, those explanations did not fit the person he knew. But investigators could not close the case based on what seemed likely or unlikely. They needed evidence, and that is one of the hardest realities of wilderness missing person cases. Searchers can cover large areas and still miss something. Trails connect to roads. Vegetation blocks visibility. Weather can alter a scene. Someone may move in a direction that no one expects. When no confirmed trace is found, the absence itself can be hard to read. It does not prove the missing person left the wilderness. It does not prove another person was involved, and it does not prove the original search area was wrong. It only means investigators are left with possibilities instead of certainty. Law enforcement kept Barbara's case open, and years later, authorities again appealed to the public for information. The hope is simple. Someone may still remember seeing her, the two young hikers, the light-colored Chevrolet, or something on one of the nearby roads that did not seem important at the time. A future search could also uncover something earlier teams missed, but unless new evidence appears, those possibilities remain exactly that: possibilities. What makes Barbara Bolick's case so difficult to forget is not that we know something impossible happened. It is that there is barely enough evidence to point confidently in any direction at all. And when that happens, speculation can start sounding like fact very quickly. The hiking companion can look suspicious simply because he was the last person with Barbara. The two unidentified hikers can become mysterious suspects because investigators wanted to speak with them. An accident can be dismissed because searches found nothing. But none of those conclusions is supported strongly enough by what is publicly known. That is why the missing minute at the center of this story has to be handled with care. A failed search does not mean Barbara somehow vanished from the mountain. Her experience does not mean she could not have had an accident. And being the last person to see her does not make someone responsible for her disappearance. The evidence does not give us that certainty. Sometimes a mystery lasts because there are too many clues. This one may have lasted because there were too few. The most honest answer is still the hardest one. We do not know what happened to Barbara Bolick. 20 to 30 feet, roughly 1 minute. Nearly 2 decades later, those simple numbers still frame a question no evidence has been able to answer. Until something new is found, that missing minute remains exactly that, missing. If you enjoy carefully researched mysteries like this one, consider subscribing. And as always, thank you for watching.
This file may be closed, but the truth is always out there. What do you think really happened? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to follow the next case. I'm Detective Frost, and this is the Cold Files.